Welcome to Color Country Politics, where we discuss all the important political issues facing Iron County, Utah. Our guests include elected officials and community leaders in or representing Iron County. This is episode 47, 2020 Candidate Forum, Rex Dungan, County Assessor.
And good morning. This is Jenny Hendricks, and I am here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Jesse Harris.
And this is our first Rona broadcast. We're doing this via Zoom because social distancing. So we're starting our next series as far as interviewing the candidates and getting their information out to you. And, again, because of the guidelines that we're all living under right now, we're doing this, all of us remotely. So we'll see how it turns out. I'm kind of excited. This is, maybe an opportunity to reach even more people who aren't local. So today I am very excited to be able to introduce Rex Dungan. He is running for Iron County Assessor. And Rex, welcome.
Hi, good morning. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Rex, tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and sort of how you got to the assessor's office in Iron County.
Well, there's quite a bit of history there, so I'm not really sure exactly where to start, except to just, I guess, bring to the point that I've been in the appraisal and real estate industry for about 35 years. And in that time, I've run my own appraisal company. I'm also a real estate broker and had my own brokerage. It got to a point here where I had decided, my wife and I both decided that we were going to pace down our lives a bit. An opportunity came up at the assessor's office a couple years back, and that's what I went to pursue. And I ended up here working as a deputy assessor. We have a couple of kids at SUU, and so we've had a home in Panguitch for quite a while, but we went ahead and bought a house over here in Cedar as well. And through a history of working in banking, working in appraisals, I was the chief appraiser with a large institution for about 5 years before coming here. It bode well for me to come into this environment and do a good job for the county.
That's great. Well, it's sure been nice to have you. I know that they were looking for a deputy assessor for a long time before you came around. So that's great. Tell us a little bit, Rex, about why you are running for the position of assessor. There
are a few reasons. Number one, that the office is being vacated. So that's a setup in the first place that suggests, an opportunity to do something further with my career. But, working here with the county, I recognize the needs that the county has for someone in that position that knows how to deal with the business of being an assessor, to communicate with the tax administration, the relationships that I've already developed with the tax commission up in Salt Lake. And, all of these come together and they culminate to a point that says, hey, you need to be the next assessor because you have all the tools and the skill set that fits that position.
That's great. So what are a few things that you would like to accomplish if you are elected to the assessor role? What are some of your goals in that arena?
So I suppose if there were a platform per se, one of the things that I think that would serve our community and the county so much better is something in the line of a better public education. I think that we have a gap out there in general with the populace throughout the county. People that don't understand how their properties are taxed. They don't understand some of the benefits that are available to them, some of the tax breaks that they could be taking advantage of, understanding the Farmland Act, the Assessment Act. And what it takes to qualify and make your property eligible for that. So for me moving forward, beyond just the standard business of the assessor's office, and its role within the entire tax administration, I think that we'd better serve the community by creating an educational outreach. And in doing that, things like YouTube videos, instructional videos, and some of the things that could create or help people understand some of the taxing rules and eligibilities that they're probably not aware of. I'd like to reach out to the public through resources that are already talking to the public, that being realtors, accountants, people of this sort. I think educating more of the professionals in our community is probably the best way to reach out to everybody in the county.
That's great. So I would just want to clarify, because I thought I heard you say that you wanted to help people save on their taxes.
Well, there are, I'm sure that's good news for everyone, right? As a property owner, I want to save on mine as well. But, when you sit in here on a day-to-day, you have the benefit of seeing folks come through and ask questions about things having to do with their primary exemption or wanting to convert their property to Greenbelt, the FAA.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks don't understand some of the criterion that comes with being able to make those properties eligible. I visited with a man here about 3 weeks ago, and we were doing a valuation on his property, and we noticed that he was in a secondary category, meaning he was paying taxes on the full 100% value of his property. And I had asked him, do you live in the home? And he said, yeah, I bought it about a year ago. And I asked him why he hadn't filed for his primary exemption and how much he would save. And he just simply said, well, I was told that it wouldn't do me any good, so I didn't turn that in.
Oh dear.
I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus that told him that, but we helped him understand that there's a great benefit, and he was excited to find out he was going to save 45%. So those are some of the things that I think we could probably do a better job at communicating to the public.
Right. Let me ask you, in that same sort of line, with the new legislation that has come out that has to do with the title companies having a standardized form that is going to the recorders. Well, the title company usually interacts with the recorder's office, but then they've got this form that needs to go to the assessor, just because of what you were talking about, has primarily to do with that primary residence exemption. Do you have any history? Do you know anything about what's going on with that?
I don't have any history with that, but I'm familiar with how we can communicate so many things through title companies, especially through property acquisition. They're already having people sign so many disclosures, and they're already making folks aware of so many of the different rules and laws particular to property ownership within the state of Utah. Advocating having the primary exemption, or at least an explanation, being included through the title company and passed on to the property owner, the buyer, whomever, is going to make a huge difference in transparency for what their benefits could be working with the assessor's office. I'm hoping that it would develop a greater public trust, so that people could then see, hey, they really do want to help us.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about what, in your view, the assessor's office is doing well, and and what could maybe be improved if you were in charge.
Good question. I think, currently under our current leadership, Cindy Bullock is our assessor right now. One of the things that her office pushes on a daily basis is equity, fairness in pricing and value. We really, really do strive to ensure that if you're talking to your neighbor, you find out that your home values are fairly consistent, that your site values are consistent, and the variables, have a lot to do with what's particular to your property. Maybe some of the salient features, maybe you have a view, some of those things that create a difference in value, but across the board, there's an equity that exists and should exist when, we're valuing all the properties, especially in mass appraising, because we're doing volume appraisals rather than just individuals. Moving forward, though, the state has mandated that we now have to tighten up our margin of variable. I won't even say it's a margin of error. It's a margin of variable. So if we have, if we have an example of property that was assessed a year ago at $200,000 and it sells in the next few months for $220,000, we've had a 10% increase. That's a ratio difference of 10%. If you take an entire market and you take 20, 30 sales across 200 or 300 homes that have sales increase or value increases through that ratio process, and you see a 10, 12, 14% average, the state's idea in modeling that against the rest of the market is to then revalue everybody's property at a 10, 12, or 14% increase. And I think that's something that should be addressed in a greater detail with the state, because I think that we need to segment our markets out by subdivision. I'll give an example of Lay Hill. There's so many subdivisions. It's not fair to have a Crescent Hills new subdivision selling like crazy and driving the percentage of ratio increase for Mesa Hills, which is not having that kind of a sales volume or increase. So
exactly,
if we were to parcel that out and segment the subdivisions, we could probably do a better job at creating a more realistic ratio of difference when we deal with the individual subdivisions instead of entire huge markets at one time.
That's interesting. That's it's something that I think people get a little concerned about when you start talking about where the information comes from, who's got the information, does the state have the information. So I'm glad to hear you're on top of that and you're aware of it, and would be advocating on our behalf, because everything that you said right now is from a market standpoint is absolutely the case. That's great. Hey, Jesse, I know you have your question that you always want to ask, having to do with one's mental state in running for office.
Yeah, well, I've always said you have to be at least a little bit crazy to decide to run for office. You're putting yourself out there. We've seen how sometimes things evolve in personal attacks. I mean, everyone went nuts about the Salt Lake City mayor's election because of how above board it all was. So what made you decide that this is the time where I need to put myself out there and jump in front of the bullets?
That's a great question, because, there again, there's a bit of history that came along with that thought process and the decision making. I won't deny, when I watch what our current assessor does and her job, it is absolutely daunting. I don't think people realize how many balls are being juggled by that office in dealing with the public and dealing with the state. And when the tax commission sends down new mandates or changes in policies, we have to interpret and implement and then educate the public on them. And she's working with a staff of about 15 people here, working with the commissioners on county issues. There's a lot to be done there. So when I first said, hey, yeah, I'm going to do this, I actually sat back down and thought for a second, wait, do I really want to do this? It took some time. At first, I thought, do I really want to go down that path? Because, my wife and I had just sort of downsized our lives. Coming from a chief appraiser position where I had 167 appraisers, it was a lot of work. And so I knew that I could do the job. But, frankly, my wife and I discussed it. I will say that we prayed about it. And when we got to the point when we realized that, yeah, this was the right move, it was the right move for me. It's the right move for the office. I'm qualified for the position, and I'm responsible to take that responsibility for the county.
That's great, Rex. Thank you. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like voters to know about you, about your race, about what is happening? Anything that would be helpful?
Anything that would be helpful. There are a lot of talking points, I suppose you could say, that come with being in here. We see everything on the day-to-day. We know what the job is. And I'm good at what I do, and I don't mean that in an arrogant sense. I've been doing it for so long that I'm comfortable at it, and I know that I do a good job and will continue to do a good job. I sort of have a motto that I've put on my letters when I send them out to the delegates, and it says something like, I'm asking for your vote, not just because I want the job. I'm asking for your vote because this is my job. That's what I'd like people to know.
That's great. Well, we sure appreciate you taking time today and being our guinea pig. This first process of social distancing, Zoom, Color Country Politics broadcast. So, Rex, thank you and best of luck. I'm Jenny Hendricks.
I'm Jesse Harris.
And we'll see you soon. We'll see how this new process works. Have a great week.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Color Country Politics, a production in cooperation with Utah Politico Hub and graciously sponsored by Century 21 Prestige Realty at 121 North Main Street, Cedar City. Special thanks to Amoeba Crew for use of their song Background Indie Rock, licensed under Creative Commons. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever fine podcasts are found. Also, check out our YouTube channel where we post video of our interviews. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and our website at www.colorcountrypolitics.com.